Hello, welcome to Puffin Billy Railway. My name is Robert Reid. I'm a volunteer fireman. I've been doing it since I was 18. I'm 25. My day job Monday to Friday is working in the Belgrave workshops as a maintenance engineer. I've been doing that for a year and I help maintain our steam locomotives, diesel locomotives and carriages here at the Puffin Billy Railway. Follow me, I'll show you around. Welcome to the crew room. We like to call it the Hilton. This is the first place where volunteers come in the morning for a shift. A fireman will come in either 3 or 4 hours before the train leaves. This is so the fireman can prepare the engine safely and prepare for a good day ahead. One of the first things the fireman does is sign on here. This board also has information for the train for the day, so it'll have which engine is running on which train. And also information regarding the boiler. It's the responsibility of the engineman to make sure the boiler receives this treatment. That way we can maintain the boiler to the best condition possible. It's quite difficult to maintain the boiler without doing this sort of preventative maintenance otherwise. Another responsibility is for the engineman to look at the notices, so any new policies, procedures, or considerations the engineman must know. Over here we have our train running statements. So each day, obviously we're not running trains right now, each day there will be a sheet saying if there's anything out of the ordinary that the engineman must be aware of, that need to implement or need to consider during a normal day's operation. Righto, now that we've signed on, we've come to inspect our engine before we can put a fire into it. So as a fireman, there's a few key safety checks we must complete first before we light the first fire in the morning. Now that we're in the engine, we want to check a few safety items. Right now the boiler is empty of water, but ordinarily when we are running trains, the boiler is full of water. So the most important thing the fireman's interested in is to make sure there's boiler in the water. We can do that by doing a quick test, which is opening this drain cock and then shutting this drain cock, and we will see the water drop in the gauge glass and then come back up into the gauge glass. Some of the other initial checks are to see that the locomotive is secured, so we can check that by ensuring the handbrake is on. But generally, if the locomotive hasn't rolled away, we're pretty safe that it's going to be where it should be. Another administration check we need to do is check the logbook. So we'll be checking the logbook for locomotive 8A to ensure that there is no notes or known faults from yesterday's running that I need to be aware of, or that precludes me from lighting up this steam locomotive in the morning. I'm also checking that the regulator is fully shut, that the reverser is in mid-gear, and that all valves are turned off and there's no obvious signs of defects of the locomotive before I start lighting a fire. It might sound funny, but we're looking to make sure that the engine has all its wheels. Down here we have where a fusible plug would be. We don't have it right now because we're storing the engine dry for long-term storage, but we would be checking the bottom of the firebox and the washout plug here to make sure there's no leaks and that the boiler is safe to light up. We're also looking at the engine to make sure it's complete. All the side rods are on, everything is tight, and we will be ready to go. Here we have our cylinders. So this is what makes the engine go once the fireman makes steam. So we're just seeing that everything is tight, there's no leaks when we eventually get steam, and there's no obvious defects again in the morning. Here we're looking in the smoke box, which will show us the front of the boiler, and we're making sure there's no leaks in here. Just open this. Also checking the smoke box door, that it's clear, clean and clear of defects, and we'll shut the door and make sure it's sealing nice and tight. One other thing the fireman has to do is make sure all the boiler fittings, valves are on. So here we have our feed water valve, so we un-isolate that so we can put water into the boiler when we need to. Up here we have our whistle, one of the most important ones. So we turn that whistle on, make sure we can notify anyone who might be near the track or at a level crossing, or anyone who's waving at us. We also check in our sand domes up here, make sure we've got plenty of sand. The sand's quite useful on a wet, rainy day when the steam train's getting on the metal wheels. We make sure to use some sand on the rails to keep adhesion. We also check in here our water tanks on the side of our locomotive, and we make sure it's filled up nice to the top, full of water. And that's the water we put into the boiler to get from Balgrove to Gembrook and back. Now that we've established that the boiler is safe on the outside of the firebox and right to light up, we need to do a few more final checks in the firebox. So here we'll open the firebox door. We're going to take out our baffle plate, which is this big plate here. This plate protects cold air from rushing and getting the crown plate. Inside the firebox, we're also going to check our fire grates are in good condition. So the fire grates are the things in the bottom of the firebox which the coal sits on. So we're looking for any broken firebox grates or stays or irons. We're looking if there's any holes that we need to rectify and fix. Right, now that we are happy to put a fire in, we'll consider putting all of this wood here into the firebox. We'll get some oily rags, put the oily rags into the firebox, and we'll leave one rag with our shovel. We'll light up the oily rag on our shovel, and we'll throw the shovel into the firebox, just like that. The firebox is quite small. This is quite a small little engine. It's one of the main things responsible for pulling the 100 tons or so of carriages up the steep hills and around the tight curves in the Dandenong Ranges. Usual day, about 3 1/4 to 1 ton of coal. The coal is in our bunker behind here, behind our little engine. At the end of the day, after shoveling a ton of coal into the firebox hole, it's up to the fireman or one of his mates to clean the fire and to empty the firebox of any ash or residual coal. That is done manually with what we call a pricker. This gets put into the fire hole door, and we push this along the firebox bars and manually push out the coal between the little gaps between the bars.